Hi there, this is Crystal, and I'm back again with another layout using my October stash kit. So I have a photo here of our 3 dogs. This was taken back in 2012, so this is a very old photo, but it's one of my favorite photos of all time. And I haven't scrapbooked it because I felt like I needed something special to get it down on paper, but what I realized is that I can just reprint it and scrapbook it again if I'm not happy with how special the page turns out to be. So I'm getting it scrapbooked, and that's the important thing. So once again, I've gone through the kit and pulled out some things to kind of narrow my supply selection. So I've gone with some of the brighter colors that I had in the kit this time. And I am definitely using this, this die cut from Hip Kit Club. This was in the ephemera pack from Home Sweet Home, I think it was called, from November of 2018, that kit. I definitely want to use that. So I definitely kind of pulled colors that I thought would work with that die cut. Otherwise, I'm thinking of creating a, I have a piece of white cardstock. I'm thinking of creating some paper strips over here and then having my title come this way. That is just what came to my mind, but we will see how it goes when I actually start creating. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and put you on fast forward. So as I said before, I'm starting with a sheet of white cardstock from American Crafts. This is white textured cardstock. And I'm pretty sure I want to do layers down the left side. So I'm starting with this paper from Gather. This is from the 12 by 12 paper pad from Maggie Holmes' Gather collection. And I'm going to tear it. So I'm just using my ruler to kind of get an idea of where I think I was looking at 3 inches, where 3 inches was, and then I just kind of roughly tore it to get a little strip of paper. And I know I want to layer up another one, so I tried the Vicki Boutin paper and it just looked too dark. So I'm going to try this paper from Studio Calico. This is from the Gypsy Moon kit. This was a few years back, and I still absolutely love this paper. But you can see when I tore it, I didn't tear it very well, and a little bit of the corner got torn off. But I'm going to fix that, and you're never going to even know. So I just tore that little piece that was missing, that little chunk, and then I glued it to the strip that I had torn off, and you'll never even see that that's pieced back together. So I made that work, and I like the way that that looks together. And you know, honestly wouldn't have thought that I would have liked these two together, but it actually turns out looking pretty cool. So I'm happy with the way that looks. I had to replace my tape runner, had to refill it, so stepped away for a second and did that. And then I can move on to the rest of my layout. So I know that I want to add a bunch of layers behind my photo, but I felt like it needed something to set it apart. So I'm just going to add a little scrap of white cardstock behind it just to give it a little white border before I start adding layers. And then I'm going to do the thing that I always do and just add a bunch of different wonky layers. So I started with that light blue paper that I'm pretty sure that was from Cedar Lane. I think it was the back side. Yeah, it's a Cedar Lane paper. And then I tore a little strip of a 4x6 paper from Studio Calico. And then I'm just going to start cutting things down and creating little pieces to add behind my photo. This is something I do fairly regularly, just a bunch of different papers all kind of added together to make a bunch of wonky layers. And I really want to add this other paper from that Studio Calico 4x6 pad that was from that same collection, or those same kits from a few years back. I think it was Gypsy Moon, but I do have a video of me putting this kit together, so if you're curious about exactly where all of these supplies are from, I'll be sure to link that video down below. And then I decided to add some of this darker paper from Vicki Boutin. I felt like that added a little bit of contrast, and otherwise the paper layers were just looking too light and airy, and with that dark paper as a strip down the right side of the page, or the left side of the page, it needed something a bit darker in this paper layer group to kind of bring that all together. So I added a little piece of that Vicki Boutin paper. You can just barely see it around a few sides of the photo, but it's enough contrast to give it some weight. So I'm still trying to figure out what else I can add behind my photo. I think I just give up and go ahead and move on to the rest of my layout. So I have that little die cut from Hip Kit Club, and I know I want to include that. I also know that I want to use some of these leaves. So these leaves are from Studio Calico, from those same kits. I had 2 packs of them because I bought all of the kits from that month, and I've been hoarding them ever since, but I really want to get a bunch of them used on this page. So I have a bunch of them up above that Hip Kit Club die cut. I'm going to create a little cluster there. I also have that little tag that says "Together is Better." That's also from those same Studio Calico kits. I'm going to add that below my photo and then create another cluster around it. And I'm just adding some foam behind my photo to make it stand out a bit, and that gives me some place to tuck all those little leaves in, some place that they can kind of sit behind, instead of just all being the same level on the page. Right now I'm working on my title, so I grabbed some gold thickers. These I'm pretty sure are from One Canoe 2, although I can't remember which collection, but they're a gold foam thicker with, I think, a navy blue foam beneath the gold, so it worked really well for this page. And I really liked the size of these thickers as well. My title's going to be This Moment, so I need something else to add to those gold thickers to finish out the title. And I started with these little light blue puffy thickers from Citrus Twist Kits, but those are going to change. They're just too light. I liked the idea of bringing in more of that kind of light blue aqua color, but it just doesn't stand out enough on the white background. So I'm going to end up switching those out here in a minute for something darker. But in the meantime, I'm just working on the little clusters. I'm not exactly sure yet how I want these leaves clustered on the page. I'm going to end up playing around with them quite a bit. You're going to see me move them around a lot. I had thought I would have a cluster on either side of that tag that says "Together is Better," but it left a blank space in the middle that just didn't look right. It looked, it looked awkward. So then I thought, well, maybe I'll just cluster them all around this tag, but then it was, it drew your eye too much down there, and it didn't frame the photo like I really wanted it to, so that didn't work either. So you'll see me play around some more. I pulled out those puffy stickers from Hip Kit Club thinking maybe I could get some of those on the page, but they didn't really work either. Now I'm looking through the die cuts and trying to find more leaves, thinking maybe that will help, but that really wasn't the answer either. So that's when I went away and pulled off that light blue puffy alphas, and I grabbed these. These are from Hip Kit Club. These were a Hip Kit Club exclusive. They're just a dark navy little puffy alpha, very similar to the other ones I had, just in a darker color, and I felt like that stood out a lot better on the page and then ties in those darker bits of paper that I have layered behind my photo and in the layers on the left side. So I go ahead and glue down my photo because I know that's not going to move. I also glue down that little tag because I know I don't want that anywhere else on the page, as well as the one from Hip Kit Club, the little circle die cut at the top. All of that is where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. And then I'm really happy with the cluster up at the top of the photo. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down as well. So I'm just adding a bunch of these different leaves around that circle die cut. And to do that, I'm adding some glue runner to the base of the leaves, but then I'm popping up the edges, or the top edge, with a little tiny foam square. So that makes it so that the base of the leaves sit flat on the page and tuck behind that die cut, but then the tops of the leaves are raised up to give it some movement and some dimension. And I really like the way that looks. So I'm just adding enough leaves to make it look full at the top, and then I will move on and again play around with the clusters at the bottom of my photo. So just looking through and trying to get, like I said, a good balance of color. That's always what I'm aiming for. I want not to have too much of one color in one place. I want it to feel balanced, but it's just not working. Something just isn't working right. So there you could see there's that awkward gap in between, and it just looks like trapped white space, and I don't like that. So that's when I decide maybe what I really need is to create a visual triangle of clusters. And while that seems completely obvious to me now, it took me a long time to come to that realization while I was working on the page. So
I like that so much better. That draws your eye directly to the photo, which is where it should go, and it just does a much better job of framing out the page. So I am going ahead and committing and gluing those down, doing the same thing, adding glue to the base of each leaf and then popping up the top edge with a little foam square. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the bottom corner as well, to the bottom corner of that navy blue tag. I'm just making sure that nothing is covering up my title, but it does frame the title, so it's kind of pointing you to the title and drawing your eye to the photo as well. So on this side, I'm making sure to get a good balance of color. It's a bit harder over here because I have that darker tag. I don't want there to be dark colors right up against each other, so I'm making sure to add in some lighter colors on top to kind of break that up. But I do want some darker color over here just because there is darker colors in the other clusters, so it needs it for balance, but I don't want it directly up against that tag. So I'm just making sure to get everything in just the right spot, so fussing around with it quite a bit to get it perfect, or perfect to my eye anyway. And then I finally got everything where I wanted it, and I can move on to some final embellishments. So I grabbed these enamel dots. These are from Echo Park, from the Coffee collection, and I'm just going to add 3 little enamel dots to each of these clusters. So this is something I do fairly often as well when I'm adding enamel dots. I just like to do it in little groups of 3, and 3 different colors in each one, because that brings the colors all around the page. So that's what I've done, and it's basically done now. I felt like that navy tag was just kind of floating there at the bottom of the photo, and it needed something else below it to ground it a bit more. So I grabbed these washi strips from Pretty Little Studio from the Indian Summer collection, and they're not actually washi, they're more like a printed vellum, so I couldn't tear it, I had to cut it. But that was fine. I just added a little strip of it below the tag, and then I felt like I should repeat that, so I added a little bit at the top of the photo cluster as well. And then that's going to be it. I'm going to add my journaling off camera, and then you will see some close-up photos. So there is the finished layout. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process and hopefully got some inspiration. I will be sure to link the other projects I've done with my stash kit down below, as well as the stash kit video. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you all back here soon.